Leigh Douglas, so lovely to see you once more.
Hello, Fi. How are we doing?
Oh, just like crushed under the weight of patriarchy, but just,
Absolutely.
struggling on.
Absolutely. I'm full of the joys of spring because I've been Irish dancing again for the first time since I was 15.
Tell me everything.
Well, myself and lovely friends of the pod, Sophie and Chris, for some of our little online content, decided to go and do an Irish dancing lesson together. Myself, obviously, having been a competitive Irish dancer, Chris,
of course.
having been a professional dancer, professional trained dancer, but never having done Irish dancing before, and Sophie very much being, and I don't think she would mind me saying, not a dancer.
There for the vibes, there for the fun.
Yeah, it was, watching Sophie Irish dance was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Dear listeners, it should be coming out on Christopher Hall's Get a Hobby series on his socials. But when I say that Sophie trying to do a basic Irish dancing skip looked like she was on defense for a netball team, I'm not quite sure why the hands and arms were involved, but she was very much guarding something.
I haven't been doing any dancing, but what I have been doing is a lot of like judgy dog walking.
Oh, of course.
So this is as a new dog owner to a highly, highly anxious and high maintenance rescue dog, because I am a stereotype. I have taken to walking around the streets of Brighton and Hove, and just like passing judgment upon other dog owners because they do not hold back how they feel about you.
No.
And so
No.
if I am to be judged when I'm going about my business, I shall judge others. But anyway, I've been having a lovely time because it's not been pissing it down with rain.
Amazing.
So absolutely thrilled. Like walking the dog like along the seafront on like a little bit of morning sunshine.
Gorgeous.
It's enough to make you feel optimistically.
Oh, wow. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So sorry. No, I'm still very deeply pessimistic about everything, everyone, life itself.
Should we get into Take Out the Trash Day of Queer Gals Watch the West Wing?
Episode 13. Queer Gals Watch the West Wing.
Lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13. Obviously, we're big like Swiftie fans here, so glad it's episode 13. Just feel closer to her. Hey, gal, how you doing? Lots of love. Take Out the Trash Day is the name of today's episode. It's a bit of a weird one, actually. I was like wondering how to like get started, and I think I'm just gonna like jump straight in. We're just gonna like go straight into the deep end of the swimming pool.
Let's dive in,
because this is a bit of an itty bitty weird episode. We've got a little bit of this, we've got a little bit of that. We're like tying up some storylines. Safe to say, I have no idea where we're going from here. There's quite a lot of notes in the shared doc, which is just me saying, Leigh, help. So do what you will with that, Leigh Douglas. Okay, so we start episode 13, Take Out the Trash Day. In the best kind of way, Leigh, we're with CJ and the press. We're at a press briefing.
We love to see it.
She's behind her little lectern.
Where she belongs.
Mm-hmm. And she's frisky.
She's feeling frisky and fun.
So frisky and fun. So the president is signing something and he has to sign it with 15 pens.
Yes.
Question mark, eyebrows.
I think what's happening here is that the pens are being given away to like a special interest group as a kind of keepsake of like, keep the pen that the president used to sign the thing.
Right. There's 15 pens. He's literally signing his name with 15 pens. And Danny is like, puts his little hand up and he's like, don't mean to like bother you, CJ, but like there's not 15 letters in Josiah Bartlett. And she's like, well, nice that you should bring that up, Danny. Actually, we're like using a different pen to like dot the I's and cross the T's. So like actually we will be fine. And I don't know why, like it's very flirtatious banter. And, like the whole room's like kind of like laughing at the two of them. And then like he just finished. She's like, oh, like, are you satisfied? And he's like, yes. And then she's like, freak boy. And I don't know, Leigh, but I'm into it.
I kind of love freak boy.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm going to start using it with my partner.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend does call me freako when she feels that I'm not like giving her enough attention.
I think it's quite endearing. I mean, I'm very triggered by the word freak because it's what my brother used to call me as like a child and teenager. So it's very loaded for me.
And as a celiac, obviously also you had your freak bread.
My freak bread, my freak food.
I am a freaky girl, you are a freaky boy.
Or as my mother-in-law to be said the other day in a text, I've got some gluten-free bread and some nice bread as well.
Love that from Jane. She's not wrong. It has a ways to go, does the gluten-free bread.
It does. But hey, in the words of our friend and I, we all have a cross to bear. This is going back to the Lydells. So 2 or 3 episodes ago, where we were following the story of Lowell Lydell, who was the teenage boy who was murdered by a group of other teenagers in a very vicious homophobic attack. So his parents have been invited to the White House.
Yes.
So it's like circling back. We've had the winter break, and now we're coming back to this sort of hate crimes legislation conversation. So it's quite nice. But the hot goss, Leigh, is that the Lydells perhaps aren't fans of President Bartlet.
Perchance no.
Because Mandy, classically, because she has nothing to do, is just come to talk to CJ. CJ's being really shitty with her, and I feel like it's about the whole flirting with Danny thing, and
And I just yet again feel, why are we reducing women to this?
Your jobs are stressful. Can we be stressed about our jobs rather than a boy?
Please.
But anyway, Mandy has gone and visited the Lydells in Minnesota. They live in St. Paul, which funnily enough is where F. Scott Fitzgerald was born. Or lived for a while. I think his daughter was born there. Anyway, that's not interesting. I know a lot about Fitzgerald.
Listener, Fiona worked on an immersive theatre production of The Great Gatsby for approximately 43,000 years.
Yeah, so it's info about Fitzgerald lives rent-free in my mind
The
forever.
woman cannot escape the 1920s.
No, just always Charlestoning, just always in a slow, mournful Charleston. So Mandy went to Minnesota to visit the Lydells, and she's basically come back and said the mum is very nice and very warm, but the dad's standoffish and quiet, and I'm a little bit worried about him from a press perspective. I don't think he's a Bartlett fan.
Yeah.
And so we're worried that if they do any press interviews, that actually it's going to end up being bad press, and that they're going to be oh, well, we just don't like the president. I'm just going to put a pin in that because that is coming back around. Meanwhile, CJ, I think, is just and I mean this with love and respect, but I think she's just a bit frustrated and horny.
100%. I think she just wants to be told that she's pretty, and then she can get it out of her system and carry on being a very serious businesswoman.
Yeah. Because she is a very serious businesswoman, but she has a crush. And as a lot of us who are people who have had crushes would know, it takes over your brain. And
it's so frustrating.
All you want to do is think about kissing and stuff.
I'm a woman in my prime, Josh. I'm a prime woman.
And Josh is no doubt about it.
Josh's friendship with CJ is really doing some heavy lifting for his likability factor. The fact that he is the person that she's willing to be I'm in the prime of my life.
And I'm being wasted.
It says a lot.
She just needs to and again, I don't wish to speak for all of us, but maybe one could say, every now and then you just need to get railed.
It's so true. And I think what we're learning here is that Josh is in fact one of those men who's an incredible friend. When you're his gal pal, he's the greatest guy in the world. But if you're anyone that he's romantically involved in, he's a completely different guy. And it's just annoying.
Yeah. And I think the more time we see with him and CJ, the more I'm you're in love with Donna.
So true.
Anyway, Josh drops off a bill proposal or a piece of proposed legislation.
A report.
Thank you. Which is about sex education. And basically they need 100,000 more teachers.
Yeah.
But the kind of caveat for releasing the funds to pay these teachers is that they want to teach just abstinence in sex ed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so this report is these are the reasons why you shouldn't just teach abstinence because it doesn't work. And here's the statistics why. And the report is we should teach everything but sex education.
Also known as abstinence plus.
Leigh, would you like to share some of your thoughts on this?
I find it to be deeply homophobic.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially saying that like the only version of sex that is sex is like penis and vagina. And you know what? We've all had to kind of go back and be like, okay, I thought I lost my virginity at this point. But if this sex is sex, then I actually lost my virginity maybe a bit earlier. So, you know, we've all had to do that kind of revision of history mentally when we've come out, potentially we've had to kind of revisit and realign. But I do find it interesting that like scientific minds are being so pedantic about being like, well, you're technically still a virgin if you've done everything but have a penis inside you.
Yeah, it's like a bit fucking lame.
It's kind of crazy.
Because it's also like, okay, cool, okay, boomer, there are loads of really great ways to have fun that have nothing to do with P and V.
It's so true.
So yeah, so I kind of hate the everything but sex education thing, but I understand that what they're saying is like, if we just tell kids not to have sex or do anything sexual, they're just going to do everything and they're not going to know how to do it safely. So I can see that in the year 2000, this still being very progressive, even though now in 2024, we're like, really not that progressive at all.
No, I mean, also like gonorrhea of the throat exists, guys. It's not like we're avoiding STIs.
I would just love to just take a brief pause to tell you, dear listeners, how terrified of all STIs Leigh is. Like, I think, and I'm sure, please do get in touch if you know what the specific phobia's name is. But like, throughout my decade-long friendship with Leigh, she has come to me and been like, I think I have this particular STI. And I'm like, well, you've not had sex for this long. And when you did, you used protection in this way. So I don't believe that is correct, no. And Leigh's like, here is my will. I must close myself off from society now. I am an outcast.
It's so true, especially like in the era between like 19 and 23. This was especially my vibe.
For sure. It was taking up a lot of mental energy for you, I'd say. And I feel like we've come a long way. I'm proud of you.
I think it was a lot of the Catholic guilt and shame that was just like making me feel like a dirty girl.
No. That'll do it. Fun. So we're going to probably like pepper in the sex education report throughout because it essentially is just used as a conduit for comedy in this episode. E.g., Josh being like, by the way, pages 27 to 30, a couple of things every girl should know.
That did really make me laugh.
But what I really want to know is what's on 27 to 30? And
I think it's cunnilingus.
But then he wouldn't say that because it'd be like, that's a couple of things because he's going to be very hetero about it.
Oh.
So yeah. I think it's an oral sex joke, but like for oral sex upon someone with a penis.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably is.
Which is kind of gross, but also I kind of love that like Josh is being a little bit like, everybody fucks.
Any Cosmo girl should know.
Exactly. I think it was the Cosmo girl energy that I love.
Yeah, it was very Elle Woods from Josh, which I enjoy.
Yes. So speaking of feeling a little hot under the collar, Danny is loitering outside CJ's office and like comes in as Josh leaves. And then they just like make reference to, because obviously they kissed in the last episode for the first time, but there's a reference to a second, third and fourth kiss. I know. Which it just means that there's been like sexy secret kisses in the White House.
A proposal that actually second kisses are often more hot than first kisses. Because it's almost like, oh my God, we're doing this again.
Yeah. And the way that the two actors are playing the sexual chemistry is amazing because it's like they're both like want to jump each other, but they're like clinging to the professionalism by their fingernails. Yeah. We get a very small piece of information from Danny that Vice President Hoynes took a Navy helicopter to go and play a round of golf.
Of course.
So just like that's just a little moment of conjecture for just reminding everyone that listens to this podcast that he is a vile man. And then they make out again, like extensively. And then she just dismisses him and he leaves.
I want to dismiss someone after kissing them. Be like, we're done here. Thank you. Bye.
Me too. The ultimate power move.
Yeah.
Thanks to our good pal Donna and a classic walk and talk down the corridors of the West Wing, we find out what Take Out the Trash Day is.
Yes.
So it's kind of a good title, but also just like then they don't really follow it through. It's a bit of a weird episode. But basically, it's a day where the White House basically give the press loads of like little bits of news stories that the press have been hankering for. But because they give them all at the same time, one story doesn't end up getting more traction than the other. So it's just quite a good way of like burying things.
Yeah, so it's basically they give out like all of the bad news stories that reflect poorly on the Bartlett administration all on one day, on a Friday, when no one is paying that much attention to the news. And they give them all at once because then less column inches can be devoted to any one of the stories.
And as Josh says, nobody reads the paper on a Saturday. So let's just pour one out for print media.
R.I.P. Loved and missed.
Yeah, the Sunday papers. I mean, they still exist, obviously, but just like...
Not in the same way.
Not in the same way. A small Sam and Toby check-in. Just a realization for them that they're just not that close. Which I really loved.
Yeah.
Like Sam and Toby's, like in the doorway to Toby's office going, we never had our chats. Toby's like, what? Sam's like, our late night chats. Toby's like, we never did that. I need a little storyline for them because like they work so closely together, but I'm like, you guys don't hang out.
No, they need a little bonding moment.
Mm-hmm. And a solid sign off to what is a very boring scene generally, which is that Zoe, who has started at Georgetown now, has a sociology professor who's like doing some zany stuff. And it might be an issue, but probably not. So I think they're like, oh, we'll probably put that in the Take Out the Trash Day stuff.
Yeah, basically, she has a professor who's like putting forward some potentially racist opinions.
Yeah, sorry, I very much undermined that by saying zany. What I meant was offensive.
Yeah,
thank you. To the executive assistants,
I'm so excited to see all the EAs together,
like a group, like a gaggle.
Yeah.
What would the collective noun for EAs be?
A highlighter of EAs.
An agenda of EAs.
A filofax of EAs. A project folder of EAs.
That's lovely. I think we continue workshopping this because actually I feel like this has traction as a joke, but just we need to like get through the naughty stage. So our gaggle of EAs are all like around one person's desk.
And we've never seen EAs have a conversation with each other before.
No.
We've never seen like Margaret and Donna in the same frame.
No, they've always just been like handing project folders to one another and then like carrying on about their day. But they're like grouped around a desk. Everyone's like leaning in and all we overhear whisper. All we overhear is Donna saying, she said she knew it in her heart. And I've known things in my heart, but like, you know.
I do know, Donna. I really do know.
And then, like a gunshot, you hear, what are you girls doing?
We're just talking, Mrs. Landingham.
You all work for very important people. This is not a place for gossip.
Yes, ma'am. Immediately go back to gossiping.
Yeah. But also, I love Mrs. Landingham being like, girls, we're better than this. Like, let's be profesh. But also, we don't know who or what they're talking about. And honestly, the EAs know everything and they frickin' run the West Wing.
Just to like spill a small amount of tea, I am part of a WhatsApp group with about 300 other female stand-up comics, and there has been like a debate happening in the group as to what is gossip and what is like safekeeping. And I do think that like the concept of gossip has been derided in quite a misogynistic fashion, because often when women are sharing information, it is to do with female safety, it's to do with the importance of social dynamics within a group. And so I think Mrs. Landingham, of course, is unfortunately of the generation where female information sharing is dismissed as gossip and as petty. But actually, I think I could write a dissertation on the importance of gossip to women's lives.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I would love to endorse that and write a short like intro to, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad that that's sorted. So question is are they talking about someone who's leaked the information about like that Hoynes story about him flying the Navy helicopter to the golf course, which is like obviously very bad press? Is it going to be about something to do with like the Lydells? Like we just don't know what this gossip in quotation marks is about. The other thing that we were really worried about is because we immediately cut to CJ, like after having a very cozy moment, just like on her sofa in her office, like a little blanket.
Got a little blanket over her little feet to keep her tootsies warm.
Like as I watched that, I was in exactly the same position on my sofa with a blanket over me. But yeah, like her and Toby have like a little convo where like I think Toby's kind of like trying to come back to this idea of like, are you okay? Like kind of what's going on? Like, I want to tell you things, but like, can I trust you? Energy. And I was like, oh no, what if the EAs were like gossiping about CJ?
Yeah,
and Danny?
it was the way that they said, we knew it was her. And then we immediately cut to CJ. It's like, oh no, are the EAs turning on CJ? Because that feels horrible to think that like all of the female support staff would turn on the one female senior member of staff. That feels icky.
But the thing we do find out is we don't think it's about CJ, but we find out the name of the person who has leaked the gossip. And her name, unfortunately, is Karen.
It is Karen, yeah.
Yeah, and she's in a big old bit of trouble.
Yeah.
More on that later. A brief moment for some pure chaos from Toby Ziegler in this episode, where he like really, really gets on the bandwagon around about PBS. Like I have never seen a man talk more passionately about PBS.
And I mean, we all love PBS, but Toby loves PBS.
To quote him, I was raised on Sesame Street. I was raised on Julia Child. I was raised on Brideshead Revisited. Their legacies are safe in my hands.
CJ, you watched cooking shows?
I watched Miss Childs. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I don't know why this is important. All I do know is I love it because I'm like, we are like literally 3 episodes on from Toby having like a complete breakdown about like a homeless veteran dying.
Yeah.
And now we are like, I'm like baby Toby, like sat in front of the TV watching Julia Childs. The characters, he is a deep well, Leigh.
He's such a deep well. And I still want the backstory from that Christmas episode about why he was so affected by the veterans.
Yeah.
But also, it just makes me feel that Toby Ziegler is a demon in the kitchen.
I could not agree more. I think he's going to be a fantastic cook.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially with his French ex-lover, perhaps, you know, when they were living in their garret in Paris together, they were just like whipping up some like delicious meals, just like having some lovely like cheese and crusty baguette and a carafe of wine. Speaking of allyship, to CJ, back in the kind of Christmas episode, which had a Latin title that I can't remember, and the murder of Lowell Lydell, CJ kind of came forward on a few occasions with like very clear kind of like ally behavior. Yeah. And it's really nice to see that we are doubling down on this as a concept in this episode.
CJ is not just like okay with the gays. CJ is like quite they've made a character decision, it feels, that's going to be consistent throughout the series for CJ, that she is a very active LGBTQ plus ally.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I enjoy about the framing of that is that like she's never coming to the conversation with answers. Yeah. A lot of the time she's questioning why people are saying certain things.
Yes. And holding other people accountable for their compet, basically.
Yeah. And so this is a little exchange that she has with Leo about the Lydells visiting. Leo says, Mandy says that Mr. Lydell's withdrawn. He doesn't say much. And CJ's like, well, I don't understand. Obviously, his son was just killed. Like, that's a very reasonable way to be behaving, surely. Leo's like, his son was just killed because he was gay. And CJ just like kind of leaves a beat and she's like, and what? And what? And Leo says, this is no time to put a guy front and center who was embarrassed that his son was gay. And CJ just says, really? And I like that she's pursuing, she's like, you have made this decision based on no information.
You've made an assumption based off of this man just being withdrawn, that it's to do with shame.
And being from a certain part of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that like Leo's like, you know, he sells dental equipment in Minnesota. Okay, so that means he's a homophobe? I don't think that's fair.
Which goes to reinforce, I think we had a conversation really early on about who in the West Wing has gay friends. And I do feel like Leo doesn't know any gay people in real life.
Certainly not any out gay people.
Absolutely. And I think CJ does.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they all know Toby, but he's not out yet, so.
Give it time. So I will come back round to this storyline because it's so interesting. But briefly, I'm going to chat through what Josh and Sam are up to this episode. So they're going up the hill to, I'm guessing, the Capitol building to see some Congress people.
Yes.
And what they're doing is kind of brokering the deal about what's going to happen to Leo.
Yeah.
And there's a scene which was very helpful where essentially Bartlett was like, they're going to say this, they're going to offer you that, they're going to say you should do this, and don't make any deals until I've signed them off.
And he essentially says nothing is off the table, which I think shows how much Bartlett cares about Leo, that he's kind of willing to like see where the opposition stands and then say that actually nothing is off the table in terms of bargaining chips from his perspective.
So it looks like it's going to be Congress saying, okay, cool, well, we want this legislation or like this thing to be put in the foreground and you're going to do that and we won't force you to make Leo resign.
I believe it's a group within Congress. It's not like full Congress together.
No,
I think
it's like 3 Congress people.
I could be wrong on this. Listeners, please do correct me if I've misunderstood. But I think Congress is set up like an investigative committee into Leo.
That would make sense.
And his conduct. Yeah.
And I'll just have another like little moment for Bartlett and Leo's friendship because Leo and Bartlett are having one of their classic little check-ins. And Leo's like, oh, I'm going to chat to my friend Simon about like everything that's going on and like kind of get his 2 cents on it.
Which brings us back to gossip.
Exactly, because if that was women, that would be gossip.
Yes, because Bartlett says basically he's not been a good enough friend to you. I don't want you basically being vulnerable with him.
Yeah, like be careful what you say to him. He's a fair weather friend.
Exactly. And if they were 2 women, that would be called bitching and gossiping. When in fact, what Bartlett is doing is he is safekeeping his friend.
And providing him with information that's going to help him like make the most informed decision on something.
I wonder if that was like a purposeful theme that Sorkin was putting in terms of when women talk, it's framed as gossiping and when men talk, it's not.
I mean, I would really love that, but it's 2000, so
yeah, we shall see.
Bartlett says, and again, this is when I'm like, this line could live in a female character in this show.
Yeah,
he says, "You put a lot of faith in people, and I love you for that. I just don't want to see you get disappointed."
And that is something that Carrie could say to Charlotte. Do you know what I mean? And it would be received in a completely different way because it would be like, oh, it's just women talking about men.
Yeah, we just never see men have these conversations.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I do feel like it's worth saying that potentially the West Wing was quite progressive in this way because I can't think of many shows since this that I've seen like older male friendship depicted in this way.
Yeah.
I will just continue to sing the praises of Bartlett and Leo's friendship because I just think it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I want to talk about kissing again.
Amazing.
So Danny and CJ, it's confirmed that they haven't even been on a date. And like CJ's been pressed again by Toby about like her relationship with the press and everything.
Yeah.
And I just think it's insane that like that's on the 3rd time that CJ's been questioned about like whether or not she can be trusted with stories because, you know, of her relationship with Danny. They haven't been on a date yet.
The double standard is crazy between like the Sam Seaborn of it all and CJ.
I can't think about it too much. It makes me angry. Danny is just like, look, I just want to let you know, I have absolutely no objection to any of the kissing that's been going on.
I want to make it very clear that I have no objection to the kissing.
I love Danny. And I think he really like calms her because she's like, CJ, very much like me, gets like very highly strung. So her response is just, there won't be any more kissing. And Danny just says, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's beautiful.
But then they literally like stand like an inch away from each other's faces and like
so harsh.
Just on the edge of making out. And then she just like is like, ugh, and has to leave.
We love an unflappable woman getting flapped. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of loving CJ, let's come back to CJ's allyship. So CJ raises the point, which is it possible that a father could be embarrassed that his son is gay even after his son is murdered? And Danny and her have this like, it's a very thoughtful and very sensitive back and forth.
Yeah, I do love that it feels like Danny is someone that she can like talk about ideas with, and almost like talking to him about issues of the day kind of feels like it kind of grounds her in her own values.
Yeah. And I think she poses this question to him very honestly in a very different way to how we've seen her pose questions to other male colleagues like Sam and Toby and Josh.
Because I feel like when she asks them questions, she knows the answer that she wants or is expecting. She knows their answer in advance, but she's asking the question to kind of provoke something from them. Whereas here, she genuinely wants to know what Danny thinks.
Yeah. And I think because she's on her way to meet the Lydells, she's trying to get her head around the idea that if someone's child has been murdered, that person could still have like feelings of homophobia towards that child even after they've been killed. And I just think there's so much weight to her. She says, is it possible to the extent that he'd be disinclined to support a law that would impose stiffer penalties upon the perpetrators of hate crimes, including the ones who tied his 17-year-old son to a tree and threw rocks at his head? And Danny just says, yeah.
And she responds by saying, it eludes me. And that unfortunately did bring me to tears.
Yeah, me too. I'm so with both of them in that, where it's like, you want to be able to think the best of people, but unfortunately, people disappoint us all the time with how harmful their opinions can be and how much impact those things can have. So she's going into this meeting with the Lydells being like, I'm going to have to sit with a homophobic man who is still disappointed in his son even after this terrible thing. Yeah. So it's a really like emotionally complex one for CJ. Yeah.
A hard cut,
like such a vibe change to meeting Simon, Leo's friend.
Who is just every toxic drama school girly. I ran into a girl from high school who held my face once and said, oh my God, you're so pretty now. It's very that vibe.
I was trying to swallow water. I really wasn't expecting that. Yeah, Simon's a fucking asshole.
He's such a little bitch.
He's like, yeah, like basically you and the president are really close and like everyone talks about how like weird it is. And
he's blinded by his friendship with you and he's being foolish and you should point that out to him.
Or just like let people support each other.
Yeah.
And it's just this like horrible catty back and forth. And then you can see Leo being like, this was a mistake.
Basically, he's telling Leo that Leo should resign.
Yeah. And Leo said, I haven't seen you doing the rounds on the Sunday morning talk show, Simon. I'm glad I could help out. Which is very much like you want to go and gossip about me. Yeah. You want to go on TV and gossip about me because you know me. And you can be like, oh, I'm a close friend of Leo McGarry's. I'll come on your talk show. Yeah, I'll talk about his resignation.
And basically it transpires the only reason why this man is there is to give Leo a heads up that he's written an op-ed calling for Leo to resign.
And he calls himself a friend.
Outrageous.
How's it going up the hill? So a congressperson just says to Sam and Josh, I'd like to hold hearings into the two of you being stupid.
I do also love the line when he says, this is what happens when you let teenagers into the White House.
Yeah, I mean, they are very much dressing down them and like being quite ageist, which doesn't necessarily feel helpful.
No.
There's a few things being floated as to like what the deal is going to be, but we don't kind of put the like full like bow on that. But what we do is briefly see Jed Bartlett reading through the sex education report and Mrs. Landingham asking him questions about it.
Yeah.
And to see Jed, I could jump you right now, Bartlett, being embarrassed by sex is just excellent.
Yeah, it's really fun. Especially because Mrs. Landingham is like, put it on me, what's going on? And he's like, no, maybe not right now.
No, I won't be telling you that, Mrs. Landingham. Let's talk about the scene with the Lydells.
Yes. First of all, CJ is choosing to continue the Ice Queen approach with Mandy, which just feels beneath her, but fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just like what they've decided she's going to do with just like the one moment of flirtation that another woman had with someone that she's not even in a relationship with, but fine. Buckle up, Leigh. What a scene.
It's a real bait and switch.
I was so set up for this to be a certain scene.
Yeah.
And then I was blown away by the performance of the guy playing Mr. Lydell.
Shall I give the monologue?
Yes, please.
I don't understand how this president, who I voted for, I don't understand how he can take such a completely weak-ass position on gay rights. Gays in the military, same-sex marriage, gay adoption, boards of education. Where the hell is he? I want to know what quality necessary to being a parent the president feels my son lacked. I want to know from this president who has not served one day in uniform. I had 2 tours in Vietnam. I want to know what quality necessary to being a soldier this president feels my son lacked. Lady, I'm not embarrassed my son was gay. My government is. Mic drop. Goosebumps. She's showing me the goosebumps.
An unbelievable
What a monologue.
An unbelievable scene. And Alison Janney also as like, because it's a quest. So CJ asks Mr. Lydell, like, I need to know what your opinion of your son was, because it's coming across from a press perspective that you're embarrassed of your son. And this is Mr. Lydell's response.
Yeah.
And Alison Janney is just an amazing scene partner. She doesn't have anything to say, but like the way in which she takes on and absorbs what he's saying is unbelievable.
You see each of his statements hit her and change her. And what I will say is I did leave this episode like a little bit upset in that I felt like we never got a scene with Bartlett where he justified why he doesn't take a stronger stance on any of these issues. And I know it took even Obama like several years into his presidency to come around on gay marriage, but like I just felt like we let this criticism of Bartlett lie and we didn't answer to it. And that felt like, as a queer person watching that, it felt like we give this incredible monologue about the way in which Bartlett is falling short that feels like it should be a call to action, and this show that has consistently tied things up with a bow at the end.
Yeah.
Just lets it stand as if it's acceptable.
I'm kind of hoping that, much like I think the legislation that Bartlett was working on surrounding gun control, which seems to have been like peppered in throughout, my hope is that more overt expression of support for LGBT plus rights is something that we might see for Bartlett.
I would love to just see Leo or Bartlett speak to this issue at all.
Yeah.
We've not actually seen either of their characters speak to the issue.
Because, you know, in response to that monologue from Mr. Lydell, where he's like, look, I voted for the guy, but like, I'm pissed and I'm withdrawn because he hasn't at any point since my son was murdered stood up and righted these wrongs.
Yeah.
And so it's really crap that then Mandy is like, well, we should send them home. We can't trust him in front of the press. He's going to say something, which obviously is true, but it's a horrible rock and a hard place moment for CJ because she's like, I kind of agree with what he's saying, but like my job, my professional opinion has to be that I don't.
Yeah, I mean, that is the tough thing about being a press secretary is it's not about your opinions. It's about representing the opinions of the administration, which is tough.
I'm going to jump to what I can only describe as a sensational scene. This is just like a bonkers episode, which just has like amazing little moments of drama in it. So Sam Seaborn is back in his office. We see Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Good to see you.
Hey, hon. Missed
Kathy
you.
brings in Karen, who leaked the story that we still don't know what story
Not
it is.
Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls.
Listeners, it is Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls. I need us to just, for a moment, think about the fact that she has played a White House staffer and a 16-year-old high school student in the same year.
Which, if that's not female casting, I don't know what is.
It really is. But the bomb drop, Leigh, the absolute explosive moment of drama is, it was nothing to do with Hoynes' helicopter. Paris ratted
out Leo.
She gave Claypool the information about Leo being in rehab.
She gave him Leo's personal file.
Because Claypool was an old family friend.
Ew.
And then Sam just turns around and is like, I want you out of this building. go and clean out your desk. You're done here.
Yeah.
And like for all of the shittiness from Sam Seaborn that we get, I would not want to be fired by him.
No.
Like, again, I would have been in tears.
Yeah.
A very small aside, Leigh, regarding bananas. So the bit for this week's episode, which I just didn't want to get into in full detail because I don't understand why, is there's just like an ongoing bit about bananas and like, I think taxation on bananas or something. But at one point, Mrs. Landingham offers Jed a banana and he's like, I don't want a banana. But then later he's like, I actually do want one now. And she's just like, I won't get one for you because you were snippy with me.
I offered you one earlier and you were snippy. We love Mrs. Landingham. She's a boundaries queen.
Yeah, yeah. So, conclusion of what happened up the hill with the lads is the deal that has been cut to keep Leo in the White House with the gang is basically Congress want them to just like kind of table the sex ed report.
Yes.
Just pop it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Until the midterms?
Until after the midterms, yeah.
And actually, to be honest, that's a pretty great deal.
It's a pretty good deal, yeah. I mean, you know, untold numbers of teenage girls could get pregnant in that time, but otherwise it's a good deal.
Yeah. But you know, Roe versus Wade is still intact in this fictional universe.
Fictional universe, so.
We kind of have a brief scene between Bartlett and CJ. He, in a really like roundabout way, he tells her like that Leo is staying and the reasons why. I don't know why he couldn't just come out and just say it really obviously.
Yeah.
And that you see CJ like really internally battling about whether or not she should mention what Mr. Lydell said.
Yeah. I literally was like watching it in our Google Doc and being like, oh my God, is CJ about to push Bartlett on gay rights? And then she like takes a breath and I was like, oh, she's going to do it. And then she like turned her back and started to walk out. And I was like, oh no, she's not going to do it. And then she turns back around and takes a breath. And I was like, oh no, but she didn't end up doing it.
Yeah, I'm gutted. But the one thing she does say as she exits is, we could all be better teachers. And I think it's like a wink of a nudge of a nod to,
yeah,
I need more, but you know, for now we move.
I'm glad to see that the experience with the Lydells is at least like lingering with CJ.
Yeah, and she does almost leak the Lydell story to Danny. And he's a very good human in that moment because he just says...
He basically finds CJ in a stairwell.
Yeah, she's not having a great day. And she's basically like, so what you could do is go and talk to the Lydells. And he's like, no. Don't leak his story to me because 20 minutes from now, you're going to remember you're a professional and then you're not going to like me anymore.
Yeah.
So we also love the boundaries that are already being built between them and their relationship. Let's finish this episode with
an absolute corker of a scene with Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls.
Honestly, I think a lot of the time this show just like when it's just like a two-hander.
Yeah.
We get like really into it. So Karen Larson, aka Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls, is called into Leo's office and she's literally carrying her like cardboard box of belongings. And he's like, so you're the person who like tried to ruin my life.
And he said, I wanted to meet you.
And then he's like, what questions do you have for me? Because I don't feel that we know each other. And I feel like to do what you did, you must have thoughts about what sort of person I am. And I feel like we just need to chat. We find out that
the Leo backstory.
Leo's backstory, that Leo's father was also an alcoholic and died from suicide by shooting himself at their family home.
After a fight with Leo's mom.
Which is incredibly traumatic. And then...
There's a lot of trauma in this White House between Leo and Josh.
Yeah.
Lest we forget the popcorn maker.
Lest we forget Joni and the popcorn maker. So then Karen says, is that why you drank and took drugs? And Leo says, no, I drank and took drugs because I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic.
I think this is such a good like public service announcement of what it is to be someone with dependency issues.
Yeah. And Karen says, oh, how long did it take you to get cured? And he says, I'm not cured. You don't get cured.
Yeah.
It's just a masterful depiction of it. And I feel like it's so respectful and Leo is so fair and calm. And like she gets to ask the stupid questions. without judgment. And what Leo kind of ends up saying is, Karen, what you did caused a lot of problems for me, for the president, for a lot of people we don't even know. But I'm not sure that it wasn't a little bit brave. And then he asks her if she liked working at the White House, and she says yes. And he says, well, then why don't you go and unpack your carton, and you and I maybe will give each other a second chance.
What do you say to taking chances? Sorry, it really triggered Celine Dion for me in my brain. I'm not sure why.
But I
love
just
second chances,
especially after the really big dressing down moment from Sam, where he was like basically like, "Fuck you, Karen, get out of the White House." It was so meaningful to have this moment with Leo where he was like, "Look, I have relied throughout my life and throughout my like journey in recovery for people to give me a second chance.
Yeah.
So it would be hypocritical of me not to give you a second chance."
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the episode ended.
Yeah.
And why am I crying? Yes to second chances.
Yeah.
Leo McGarry for president.
Completely, 100%. Shall we to the rapid fires?
Let's. Leigh, your best fashion moment.
Mrs. Landingham had a stunning tartan suit jacket with shoulder pads in this episode, and I want it. I love that like 90s tartan with the red.
Yeah. And actually, I would say that often women of the actor's age who plays Mrs. Landingham are dressed dowdy.
Yeah, she's never dressed dowdy. She's always bringing the fashion.
What could a British or Irish politician just never get away with?
You know what? I struggled with one this week. It felt like everyone was relatively grounded.
Yeah, people weren't being as insane. I mean, I think probably a British politician couldn't talk about their love of Brideshead Revisited.
That's so true. Yeah.
Man, I feel like a man.
I had a couple. Leo just walked into the room where Sam and Toby were at one point and just said, "Fellas," which I'd love to just like greet a room like that.
Yeah. It's very American male.
Yeah,
the
it's
American
very
male.
Fun. But I would also love to give honourable mention to Toby being in yet again negotiations with Congress people and being interrupted by a little chat with CJ, and he ends the conversation by saying, having looked like so grumpy and enraged through the whole of the negotiating process, he excuses himself by saying, "I got to get back in there. This is too much fun."
That was one of mine. It's just like being able to look like a grumpy motherfucker 99.9% of the time, and then just like being like, hee, this is fun. My honourable mention is I'd like to hold hearings into the two of you being stupid.
Yeah.
And what made you proudest to be an American, Leigh Douglas?
Lady, I'm not embarrassed my son was gay. My government is.
Confirmed. Just the whole of Mr. Lydell's monologue is the moment that made me proudest to be an American.
Correct.
Oh, actually, do you know what? I think I shit on this episode for like no reason.
I think it's just like there's not one like big dramatic event. There's just like a couple of different situations going on.
Yeah.
But I actually loved Karen, controversially.
I wonder if we'll see her again, speaking of second chances.
And an absolute star turn from Mr. Lydell.
Yeah. Like what a fantastic day player moment for that actor.
So beautiful. I bet that is still doing some pretty great heavy lifting in that man's show reel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Shall we to school?
Yes, and we're headed in slightly a different direction this week with our study session.
I love that.
Yeah, this is actually a listener request from Dayton, from Wisconsin. Hey, Dayton.
Hey, Dayton.
Dayton got in touch with us via email, which, listener, you are more than welcome to do. And Dayton's request was, I was curious, being you're both from outside the US, I was wondering how British/Irish Parliament, if Ireland's legislative branch is called that, works compared to the American Congress's two-body structure of Senate and House.
What a fantastic proposal.
It's a very, very fun question, I will say. So we're going to take a little deep dive into today what even is Irish politics. And I will say that in preparing for this, I did actually learn a few things myself. Absolutely. And I would also just love to pour one out to myself and Fiona's friend from university who flew to visit my family in Dublin. And I was giving a tour of Dublin to all of our uni gal pals. And I pointed out the Irish Parliament building. And she responded by saying, "Doesn't David Cameron do it all?"
It wasn't a great moment to be English in that moment.
No, famously, Ireland did gain its independence the Republic of Ireland did gain its independence from the British Empire. We are not a part of Britain. Thank you so much. Just a small PSA to everyone out there. But so when I'm referring to Irish government here, I am referring to the government of the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland is obviously still part of the United Kingdom, and they have a government that works slightly differently. So what I'm referring to when I'm talking about the Irish government structure today is the 26 counties that make up the Republic of Ireland. The 6 counties of Northern Ireland have a different system. Okay, so diving right in, Ireland also has a president, but the president has a slightly different function than the president of the United States. It is still very much like our executive branch of government, but the president of Ireland is elected to a 7-year term in office. And like America, they can only serve 2 terms. So our current president, Michael D. Higgins, he is an icon. We love him. He is extremely frisky and fun. If you care to listen, there is a fantastic clip of him debating someone from the Tea Party on YouTube, where he just, to use a West Wingism, he absolutely owns this man's ass. He is, like Biden, so old, but we love him. So unlike the president of the United States, who is very much like the head executive of government, the Irish president is more of a ceremonial role. So it was, I suppose, kind of influenced by the role of the monarchy in the UK in terms of he's more there in kind of an advisory capacity. And he does have the power to refer, he or she, I should say, we've had female presidents as well. The president does have the power to refer bills to the Supreme Court for a judgment on whether or not they are constitutional, rather than signing off on a bill right away if they're not sure that it is in keeping with the Constitution of Ireland. The president also has quite a big role as like a dignitary to foreign governments. So often it will be the president that travels outside of Ireland to meet with foreign leaders.
And he would be like hosting like the state dinners.
Yes, very much so. And then we have the Oireachtas, which is like our Congress. It is like the US and the UK. There is 2 bodies of the Oireachtas. This is how the Republic of Ireland is a parliamentary representative democracy. And the legislative power is vested in the Oireachtas. And because it's a parliamentary representative democracy, it is more similar to the UK in that we have our Taoiseach, who is like the Prime Minister. He or she is a TD, which is our word for MP. They are an elected TD representing a particular constituency. And then when a particular party wins a majority in the Dáil, the leader of that party is elected as Taoiseach.
Cool.
So that's very similar to kind of a British Prime Minister. And the Taoiseach, actually, rather than the president, is the person who has most of the executive power that we would associate with the American president.
I see. Okay, yeah.
Then we also do have, as well as the Dáil, which is most akin, I would say, to the House of Representatives in the US. We do also have like our version of a Senate, which is the upper house of the Oireachtas. It is composed of 60 members who are known as senators. 11 of the senators are nominated by the Taoiseach.
Okay, so like almost like his kind of cabinet in a way.
No, so the Taoiseach has a cabinet that is made up of TDs in the same way that a prime minister would have their cabinet built out of the MPs that are in parliament with them. But this is slightly different. So the Taoiseach nominates 11 senators, and then the 49 other senators are elected through some very interesting means, which I personally feel like it's a great system. Basically, the senators are not actually officially associated with any particular party.
Okay.
So in order to become a senator, it's the same as to become a member of the Dáil. You have to be a citizen of Ireland and over the age of 21. And you must not be serving a prison sentence of more than 6 months. A person of unsound mind, a judge, a senior official of the European Union, a civil servant, or a member of An Garda Síochána, which is our police force.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot be a full-time member of the Defence Forces.
Mm-hmm.
But of the 49 senators that are elected rather than nominated by the Taoiseach, 43 are elected from panels of candidates representing specific vocational interests. And the remaining 6 are elected by university graduates of particular universities.
Oh, cool.
So as I say, 11 are nominated by the Taoiseach, and in case of a coalition, it's usual for the junior coalition partner to make some suggestions to the Taoiseach, but ultimately the Taoiseach has final say over who is nominated.
Okay.
And then the various panels of vocational interests that the remaining 49 are nominated from are a cultural and educational panel. So people involved with the Irish national language, culture, literature, art, education, law, and medicine. Then there's an agricultural panel, so people involved with agriculture and fisheries. A labour panel, so people in organised labour unions and also unorganised labour. An industrial and commercial panel, so people involved in banking, finance, accounting, engineering, and architecture. And then an administrative panel, which is people involved with social services.
Cool. So all of these people who are going up to become senators, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They have like real life experience in those industries.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, great.
And they are nominated by a kind of extensive list of official bodies. But the general public doesn't vote on who actually is elected senator. The people who vote to elect the senators are members of the incoming Dáil, so members of the incoming parliament, basically, outgoing senators from the previous government, and members of county councils and city councils. So the general public doesn't vote to elect senators, but members of the government do.
Okay, and that's the opposite to in the States, where you as a person living in Florida would vote for who is going to be senator of Florida.
Exactly. You would vote for both your congressperson and your senator.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically the nominating organizations from those different panels that we talked about are mostly not-for-profits, and they put forward candidates who have knowledge and practical experience of those areas. So that's 43 of the 49 elected members. And then 6 members are elected by graduates of universities. So you don't have to have a affiliation with a particular university to be nominated by them. But 3 of the university candidates are elected by graduates of Trinity College Dublin. So anyone who's graduated from Trinity College Dublin can vote for who those candidates will be. And then this is where it's like a little bit old-fashioned, because obviously Trinity College Dublin is like, it's historically been the most elite university, and then 3 are elected by the graduates of the National University of Ireland, which is actually a group of most of the other major universities in Ireland.
Okay.
So like University College Dublin, or UCD, and University College Cork, UCC. So it does feel a little unequal in that Trinity College does feel like it's getting like an unfair weighting in that. But I think that is just like a slightly old-fashioned setup.
Yeah, but I suppose it's an old-fashioned setup, but of a system that does still feel quite progressive.
Yeah, exactly. A general election to the Dáil must be held at least once every 5 years. Ireland is divided into 39 constituencies as it currently stands, and each constituency must elect at least 3 members to the Dáil. The Constitution states that the number of TDs cannot be more than 1 for every 20,000 in the population, and cannot be less than 1 for every 30,000 in the population. So they are currently, at the moment, there's been a report that they're looking at increasing the number of TDs in the Dáil to 174. and the total number of constituencies to 43 from 39.
Because there's been such a huge growth in population in the Republic of Ireland.
Exactly, yes. We've had immigration for like the first time, guys. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But it's really nice that there's like a moment where they've like reflected that actually there isn't a way for them to currently like hear everyone's voices with the number of TDs that they've got, and so they need to expand on that in order for it to be fair. That feels really progressive, and that does feel like how Parliament should work, you know?
And it's the same as the UK in that after a general election, the party with the most TDs forms a government, and if no one party has a big enough majority, then they form a coalition. We know a coalition. We don't love a coalition.
Could often be a very tricky political time. And I think Leigh and I were just entering university when there was the last coalition in the UK. And it was just a very dissatisfying political period, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the first thing that the Dáil does in a new session is they elect a chairperson. And what is interesting is the chairperson the rules state that although they are a member of a political party, he or she has to act impartially. And almost in repayment for that, the chairperson is then automatically re-elected to the next Dáil. Yeah. Which brings us to just some little profiles I wanted to do on some key Irish politicians.
Tell me about some people, Leigh.
Yeah, so we've got Michael D. We love Michael D. He's a legend in Irish politics. He's been president since 2011. So he's coming towards the end of his 14-year max that he can be president for. He was originally a member of the Fianna Fáil party. Just a bit of background on the Irish political parties. So we have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who kind of came out of originally the two sides on the Irish Civil War.
Okay.
So Fianna Fáil, which Michael D started out in, he then quite quickly became a socialist and joined the Labour Party. But Fianna Fáil was in power in Ireland for many, many years. And it was formed by the anti-treaty side of the Civil War, led by Eamon de Valera. It's historically appealed across social divides, which is why it was in power for so long. It arguably did kind of, especially into the Celtic Tiger, become quite corrupt because they'd been in power for so long.
For that period of time, yeah.
And they're quite centrist in their political affiliations. Then on the opposite side, we have the kind of centre-right Fine Gael, who come out of the pro-treaty movement in the Civil War. So Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in the Irish Civil War very much fighting against each other. And they were very much supporters of Michael Collins, who was kind of sent to famously sign his own death warrant. He was sent in to negotiate the treaty that ended up breaking Ireland into North and South. And he was subsequently assassinated. So the supporters of Fine Gael are very much his
legacy, I guess.
Yeah, his legacy. Yes, and we'll leave that there for a moment. And then obviously we also have Sinn Féin, which is the most kind of left-leaning Irish party, do have historical ties to the IRA. But at the moment, Sinn Féin, because of their very leftist views, are gaining quite a lot of traction with particularly lower income areas of Dublin. And so it's actually managing to broaden its appeal for the first time. And then we also have things like the Green Party, the Labour Party, etc. So yes, Michael D is a member of the Labour Party. He's an unashamed intellectual. He got a scholarship to go to university in Galway, and then he continued his studies in sociology in Indiana. Hence the ties to knowing about American politics, and also at the University of Manchester. And he was a lecturer in political science at the University of Galway for many years, and a visiting professor at Southern Illinois University. He's been a fixture in the Irish Dáil since the 1980s. And in 1993, in a Fianna Fáil Labour coalition, he was the Minister of the Arts, Culture and the Gaeltacht. The Gaeltacht is the areas in Ireland where the Irish language is still spoken. And he was a real champion for the Irish film industry and was responsible for the creation of Ireland's Irish language television station, which is quite a huge legacy for the Minister of the Arts.
So what we're saying is when he does step down at the end of his 14 years, there's going to have to be a big party.
Yeah, hugely. He's also a poet and had published 4 books of poetry before his election as president.
And is he also the gentleman who has like the very elderly large dog?
He has very large dogs, yes, and the dogs do travel with him.
For some reason, I just find that quite camp, and I love it.
It is quite camp. He's known for, and I would really encourage any of you who have any interest in this whatsoever, just Google Michael D debating people. He's such an incredible speaker. He also, in the debate that I mentioned at the top of the episode with the member of the Tea Party, he actually at one point calls him a wanker.
Which is, I think, if you're from like the UK or Ireland, it's just a really satisfying way to insult someone.
Yeah. And he's known as being an incredible, like a really impassioned speaker, both in English and in the Irish language, which we love.
We do love. And I do feel like it's important to have, like in that role as president, to have someone who is a fluent Irish speaker.
Yes, you do. You have to pass an Irish language test in order to be a civil servant or work in government in Ireland. Yeah. Cut to my father making me go to Saturday Irish lessons when we moved to America because he wanted me to be able to do any job in Ireland when we moved back. The Irish lessons, listener, did not go well.
But she's a great Spanish speaker.
It's Irish is a beautiful language, but it is really hard if you're not being taught well because the grammar is quite confusing. Then we'll just leave on Leo Varadkar, who stepped down as Fine Gael leader and Taoiseach earlier this year. He was quite a historic Taoiseach for Ireland in several ways, in that he is the son of an Irish nurse and an Indian-born doctor. So he was our first mixed race Taoiseach. He was also Ireland's youngest ever Taoiseach and Ireland's first gay Taoiseach.
Woohoo!
Which we love. He's now 45. He was only 38 when he was elected Taoiseach in 2017.
Gosh, I didn't know he was that young.
Mm-hmm. He is credited. Him and Fine Gael, he's a member of the Fine Gael party, and he argues that under his leadership, Fine Gael ushered in a social revolution in Ireland in that both same-sex marriage and the right to an abortion were passed under his leadership.
What an amazing legacy again.
Yes, and also he was Taoiseach of Ireland in a really pivotal time because Brexit happened.
Yeah.
And with Brexit happening, obviously there was the real risk of a hard border being put in place between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which, listener, if you're in America or even if you're in the UK, I was in Ireland, I was living in Ireland when Brexit was passed. And it was a really horrible day because I just remember going into drama school that day and everyone was so scared this was going to mean that Northern Ireland was going to become a violent place again.
Yeah.
If a hard border was placed between the Republic and the north of Ireland. And so one of Leo Varadkar's huge legacies is he had quite a bullish response to Brexit and he didn't allow a hard border to go in, which it was a huge and important thing for the maintenance of the peace process in Northern Ireland. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic then kind of swiftly followed and Fine Gael lost seats in the general election following. I mean, no politician did well out of COVID.
No.
Then he went into a coalition with Fianna Fáil and they did a kind of weird rotating Taoiseach system where the Fianna Fáil leader, Micheál Martin, was Taoiseach for 2 years and then they swapped.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a fan of that.
It was kind of a weird way of doing it. But yeah, so to reflect on Leo Varadkar's legacy, he became health minister in 2014 because he, like his dad, was a doctor before he was a politician. And he came out in an interview with our national broadcaster, RTE, in 2015. And he's quoted as saying, "This was only a few months before the same-sex marriage vote in Ireland." He said, "It's not a big deal for me anymore. I hope it's not a big deal for anyone else. It shouldn't be." What we also love Leo Varadkar for is that he brought his partner to meet Mike Pence, one of the most anti-LGBT politicians in the United States.
What a flex. What a fantastic, incredible flex. Just to really get under Mike Pence's skin. I love it.
Yeah, he tweeted that he had a warm reception at Pence's home, but also called out various forms of discrimination. And he was quoted as saying, after visiting Pence, I lived in a country where if I tried to be myself at that time, it would have ended up breaking laws. But today, that has all changed. I stand here, leader of my country, flawed and human, but judged by my political actions and not by my sexual orientation, my skin tone, gender, or religious beliefs. Which we love. And we'll close with something quite funny. Ireland, like the US, has the freedom of expression ingrained in the Constitution. You have a right to freely express your convictions and opinions. Mm-hmm. However, this is limited to when it might defame somebody else. Ireland does have much stronger defamation laws than the US does. And in the same referendum in May 2018, where Ireland legalised abortion, we also repealed the 37th Amendment to the Constitution, which made blasphemy illegal.
Which I feel many people had forgotten.
Yeah, so in Ireland before, you couldn't use the Lord's name in vain on radio or on television.
My instinctual response was to go, oh my God.
Yeah, so Father Ted was in reams of legal trouble through RTE. That's why it was broadcasted by the BBC and not by RTE, was because of the blasphemy laws. But that was repealed.
Amazing.
That was repealed in May 2018. Yeah.
Huh. Well, what a fun little piece of trivia.
Yeah, so that is, in a nutshell, Irish politics. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with Sinn Féin as a party in the next couple of years, because I think they are putting out a really progressive agenda. Ultimately, I think Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have been in power for too long. They're too conservative, and I think it's a really exciting time in Irish politics.
I think global politics, the next 5 years to a decade is just going to be like an incredibly monumental period of change.
Yeah.
Some hopefully, fingers crossed, to be optimistic. I know it's not my natural vibe, but hopefully a change for good. But, change is coming nonetheless, not to be a miserable bastard about it. Thanks, Leigh. That was actually so informative, because I feel like I really needed it broken down in kind of like legal terms.
Yeah, totally.
I think learning about any other countries' like political system structure can feel like really impenetrable. Yeah. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you so much to Dayton as well. I hope we answered your question. And if you would like to send in your own question, your own stupid question into Queer Gals Watch, we are Queer Gals Watch everywhere. And our Patreon is also there with all of our resource lists and fun things. So do check that out. If you fancy supporting us, we would really appreciate it.
Leigh, always a pleasure, never a chore. Let's do this again, shall we?
Let's please. And I'm still hoping that we come back to the gay rights in the next episode.
Here's to Mr. Lydell.
To Mr. Lydell.
Cheers.
Love you, hun.
Love you, bye.